In this hour, we're going to be talking about security. We're going to have questions and answers at the end, but to kick us off in this security discussion, Jonas from Axiomatic is going to talk about a kick-ass API.
Right.
All right. Thanks.
Right, something like that. I'm going to start with kind of lowering the expectations a little bit. I'm not a ninja. I do a little bit of Thai boxing in my spare time between business travel, but that doesn't really qualify now, does it? This is going to be about authorization and about authorization for APIs, however. So yeah, my name is Jonas Markström. I work with a company called Axiomatics, and we specialize in fine-grained externalized authorization, or what some analysts will call externalized authorization management. I'm taking just a bit of a pause here to allow people to come back in. Oh yeah, you see this, you guys are smart, so you see this, you know there's going to be a little bit of a journey. The IT landscape, if you will, is big, it's vast, it's ever expanding, kind of like our own universe. The number of applications, they're growing fast, like stars, like planets. There's no stopping to the business's hunger for better processes, new and better applications, and more data. There's so many business analysts, so many stakeholders. Just one architect, you. Historically, and again, yeah, it's a bit of a journey. Historically, each and every app, or shall I say application or software, right, exists independently of one another. Information is exchanged record by record in a process that is manual, process that is tedious, lengthy, and of course, error-prone. Right now, we're in the, let's say, late 1990s, and to use an expression that my Ukrainian friend sometimes say, IT is painful. And IT is not enabling the business to connect the dots. It's not enabling the business. It's not business friendly. What do? Yeah? 3 words, or 3 letters rather, EAI. I had to write that down, EAI, Enterprise Application Integration. So an integration framework comprised of a collection of technologies and services forming together a middleware, or a middleware framework, right? To enable integration between systems and applications across the enterprise. So integrate applications together, exchange data, extend business processes. So you integrate within the enterprise and even beyond the enterprise barriers or boundaries. You invite your customers, your partners, your contractors, your agents, legal bodies, you invite them all to the party. You share the processes, you share the data. At some point, EAI, it morphed into SOA, or service-oriented architecture. That's probably more familiar terms, familiar grounds. Now, SOA brought about a plethora of standards and tools to implement EAI, or SOA, such as SOAP, WS Star, SAML, of course, and so on. XML, he was the new kid on the block, right? And he was really cool. Yes, SOAP. SOAP was liberating and clean, right? And large companies now, they started to build SOA strategies driven by SOAP, WS Star. This was relatively successful, shall we say. But progress was slow and integration was more difficult. The promise of interoperability didn't really deliver. The .NET stack, for example, it struggled to talk to the other stacks like Java. And different other protocols emerged that competed. XML processing was heavier than anticipated. Authentication, trust establishment, something of a cryptic nightmare, if you will. So this little boy, is he smiling because this stuff was a piece of cake, or is it because this stuff was still painful? Now, for this to happen, a new breed of product solutions emerged some 10 years ago. XML gateways, the heavyweight champions of security. The likes of IBM's Data Power, for example. XML fortresses, in a sense. Masters of SAML and web service security. This was a great step or a leap forward, perhaps. But it wasn't agile, it wasn't easy, and so we needed something more lightweight, more purpose-built, not an all-in-one Swiss Army knife. Banks. I showed this presentation to my daughter this morning, of course, and she goes, pig, 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 pig. No, but banks. Banks are among the first, right, to want to open up. They go from having legacy systems, stuff behind the firewall, the bank this, the bank this, the bank that, if you're lucky, the bank mobile app. They go from that to an API-first strategy all of a sudden, releasing small, almost like microservices-style APIs upon which they would tack value-add application services, allowing them to, of course, profit from exposing this. But in Europe, at least, there's another driver. There's consumer-enabling legislation happening. So whether we're looking for new exciting stuff or we're looking for compliance, you're going towards this from left to right. This might have where you've been up until now. This is probably where you're moving towards. Maybe I can even cut the first half of the second diagram here. A lot of large companies we talk to, banks in particular, they talk about APIs, exposing APIs to third parties. They might still have their own bank mobile app, but third parties can build their own solution as well. So now that you expose more data, a few steps forward, right? You expose more data and you expose more data more openly. We need to start thinking about this. We need to start thinking about security, right? If we haven't already. And the question becomes here, do we bake access control into the API? And if we do that, then how do we make sure that the API is not just secure, but it's also the solution that we pick, what we do here, is also flexible enough to cater to a change of requirement, change of use cases, change of national as well as international legislation. It's flexible to adapt. How do we do that? And of course, this is a rhetorical question. I don't expect any answer from you guys. So one of the main challenges in building APIs or building business layers, building applications, data tiers, is that we need to figure out this thing about security and particularly access control. Who makes the decision? Where do we make the decision? Should developers implement the logic? Again, if so, where? As SQL statements, maybe? Logic inside the business processes? Inside the application itself, within the API? Question marks. What if we have different APIs or different applications that are consuming the same data sets? Should we do access control differently in all these different places? If so, how do we make sure that we're on top of what users can do, what services can do? How do we prove compliance? So let's look at a flow. I'm just going to sort of skip through this. We've got a user left-hand side. She's called Alice, just like my daughter. She's trying to access a record 123 or account 123. through the API. And the question, of course, is where do we do access control? In the API, maybe in front of the API? Oh, look, it's the guardian angel. This is one name that we've heard. There are many, of course, and of course, Axiomatics, we will have our own product name on this component. What we have here, the concept is, and a prospect brought this to us, so they had this product, all we need to do was replace guardian angel with something else. The idea, the concept is that you have a centralized piece in the enterprise that's responsible for decision making. So you go there, you go ask the guardian angel, can I do this? Yes, you can. Can I do that? No, you can't, right? So the central piece of infrastructure, and you go to it no matter what layer you're in the application, in the API, this and there, no matter the technology, you go see the guardian angel for access control decisions. So we're gonna revisit our flow, of course, and something has changed. Let's see if my animation works. Yeah. We're employing an API gateway here. The authorization decision doesn't happen there. Interception happens there. We're outsourcing, if you will, the decision making. And oh, we're doing this one more time here as well, optionally, of course. Defense in depth here may not be required, might be good strategy. Both places in front of the API, using the API gateway, in front of the data tier, using a proxy. We offshore that decision to the ABAC authorization service. Also, wait, first I said guardian angel, now I'm saying ABAC. What the F is ABAC, right? So ABAC, abbreviation of course, stands for attribute-based access control. And this is a new, more modern, more flexible authorization model that's able to do security for all your APIs, all your applications, all your data stores, all in one go, all from one place. So externalized from the code, externalized from the API. Centralized, policy-driven, attribute-driven, I'm going to talk about that, or attribute-based. And standardized as well. That's a big plus for large enterprises. So what are attributes? Let's try to explain this a little bit. Attributes are essentially key value pairs, labels with properties, and these can be multi-valued. Simple example, an attribute on a user could be user citizenship or just citizenship. The values could be Swedish in my case, or maybe Swedish or Norwegian. It might be Swedish and Norwegian, right? Attributes can be typed. Attributes can be strings, they can be numbers, they can be booleans, they can be dates. Let me click through that as well. Attributes can relate to the who, the what, the where, the when, the why, and how. So there are many dimensions to them. And in fact, they can cover all the grammatical functions of a sentence of natural language. So subject, the who, right? The verb, the action attribute. The object, what resource, for example, the transaction or the account. As well as the contextual information. The why, the how, the when, the where. Importantly, attributes can be sourced from many locations. From databases, if you attended my little demo the other day, I had a lot of attributes in a database. They can come as part of the authentication token, for example. They can be part of another API. It can be the API message. It can be anything, an LDAP, what have you. Now, we string attributes together into rules or policies. So to make some sort of an analogy, right, attributes, they're like vocabulary. Policies are like natural language. And if you think about this is really valuable in that with attribute-based access control, you can have authorization rules, policies that are close to natural language, meaning they can be close to the originating requirements meaning this doesn't have to be IT change, doesn't have to be IT driven. It should be, of course, more towards the business side of things. The business should be in charge of access control. And with attribute-based access control, you can have something that you can relate to the business and where the implementation is close to the original requirement, the natural language requirement, not the custom code that you'd have to build upon a role or something else. Yeah, and so policies, of course, they decide what is permitted, what is denied. That's access control for you, right? Some examples of attribute-based access control. Managers can view accounts in the region. Take another one. A user cannot approve a transfer that they have requested. These might be the original requirements part of some application project, right? But with ABAC, this could almost be the actual implementation. It looks very close to this. Okay, moving on. Policies can be local and global, right? We can have different scope. I can have application or use case specific scope, specific policies about, in my case, the transactions API. This is an enterprise solution. ABAC is for enterprises. So you would, of course, want to have global scope that is always evaluated. Time of day, for example, working hours. And you do those checks first. Some enterprises will have a global scope for everything. They're just having the same rules across every app. And as I said, each and every app will be asking the guardian angel or the ABAC authorization service. Examples, while I'm trying to wrap this, running out of time. We can use ABAC, attribute-based access control, to implement time-based requirements. For example, deny access to an API outside of office hours. The other week I had a requirement from a customer. They wanted to say, across their applications, they wanted to say, disallow access to administrative functions within an application if the user's password will expire within the next 5 days. Can do that as well. Location-based policies. So this example, it's a bit interesting. It's a bit special, actually. It's a company with headquarters in the Netherlands. They happen to have a big branch in Singapore, and there's legislation there, local, that says that you have to be a Singaporean national to read this data. The data resides probably in the Netherlands, but you gotta make sure that that data is encrypted, can only be decrypted by a user with Singaporean nationality. Dynamic access control. This is more generic. This is something that could be enterprise-wide. Managers can view accounts that are in the same branch. So we're checking the location or the office or something like that of the user, the manager in this case, and we're comparing that with the location of the resource. Easy as that. You have a single rule that will apply to any location of any manager and any resource. Segregation of duty. This is often a way in for us that customers, they have been doing authorization all over the place in different apps, across 100 apps, across 1,000 apps. And the sum of all the permissions, of course, you arrive at toxic combinations, too much privilege, excessive privilege, and of course, segregation of duty concerns. We can address this with the ABAC. We could have a simple rule that says, for example, employees cannot approve the transaction that they have initiated. So if I start this transaction, I can't approve it. Of course, that's a common fraud that you read about in the papers or see in the news every time. Yes, to summarize, ABAC, we think that an API strategy, certainly the security aspects of an API strategy, should consider ABAC, should maybe start with ABAC. Externalized, fine-grained, attribute-based access control. Any API we can, with this type of solution, you can realize any policy, any requirement that the business might have on you, using any attribute available to you. So that was it for me today. Thank you very much for listening.